This is Ron Costa broadcasting live in the Mapple USA studios in Las Vegas, Nevada. And folks, everybody's trying to get into crowdfunding. Everybody wants to get paid, but can they do it? We're going to talk about that and ways to be safe about it all. So before we do that, let's introduce Vicki Hachmala from the World Token Market. Vicki, how are you doing over there today?
Doing fabulous as always, Ron. You know, Vegas is doing what Vegas does, and now it's 106 degrees outside, getting ready for that 111, 120 coming up. But you know what they say, it's a dry heat, no humidity, no bugs, so it's bearable. But like you said, we have an excellent podcast today with one of our favorite guests. We're going to talk about Reg A and what not to do and how to do it right. So let's get started.
All righty then. So let's introduce Mike Brette. Mike's the CEO of Small Cap Equity Advisors. Mike, how are you doing over there?
I'm doing well. Thank you.
Great. You know, Vicki mentioned that we hit 100 here in Vegas. In San Diego, you still have the perfect weather year round, don't you?
Yeah, right now it's about 73. So, you know, yesterday I think it was 85 at the most. You know, but yeah, it's pretty good.
Well, you know what our listeners should know is that here in Vegas, and Vicki can attest to this, once we actually hit that 100 mark, it never goes under. So we're going to be 100 or above probably until the end of September. Isn't that right?
That's exactly correct. No matter how hot it is, whatever the temperature says, doesn't matter because hot is hot, whatever the degrees are. And we just stay in our air-conditioned little areas and go through it, and it's fine. That's why we all have pools.
Yeah, people always say Palm Springs, which gets to like 120 degrees in the summer. It's a dry heat because it's in the desert. Yeah, dry heat. The oven is dry too if you're turning it on 500 degrees, but I wouldn't want to be in there. So dry heat, I don't think so.
No doubt.
You just roast yourself to brown instead of steam yourself.
Yeah, there you go. And one of these days, Mike, we're going to have a podcast just on the water issue of the desert, but that's for another time. But for now, you've been on the show so many times, but maybe you could do a really quick recap of yourself and your background.
Yeah, sure, not a problem. Yeah, I've been in business over 30 years. I have my law degree, my doctorate degree in law for 45 years. I've been focusing on taking companies public or structuring Reg A offerings for clients as well as private placements. We do all the filings with the SEC, making sure it's compliant with state and federal regulations, make sure the offering is blue skied in every state where the company wants to raise money. And, we do a lot of marketing and market awareness for the companies if they're engaged in crowdfunding, which again, under the Jobs Act, you've got Regulation CF crowdfunding, you got Reg A and 506C private placements. All of them were kind of put together in the Jobs Act, which allows small businesses to access capital as long as they follow the rules. It's less burdensome, less cumbersome, less SEC reporting through the crowdfunding process. So that's what we're focused on. I've taken a number of companies public over my career. I've got several Reg A's that I'm doing right now for clients, and we work in all areas, oil and gas, solar, cannabis, pharma. Really it doesn't make any difference the sector. And what we look for is solid business generating revenue, no startups or pre-revenue, and strong, successful management. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Right. Okay. Well, that's great. Now, all these companies that you're working with now, they obviously have, I guess, a sales force or some kind of marketing departments, and they try to obviously raise money somehow. And there's ways where people want to get involved in this too, but it's not as simple as just, let's say, joining an affiliate program to sell T-shirts or something like that online. You see these affiliate programs and partnership programs all around, but crowdfunding is a little different that way, right? I mean, there's a lot of things you have to worry about as far as wanting to maybe get paid for your efforts. Is that right?
Yeah, good point. Crowdfunding is a great tool, for businesses to use to raise money, but there are rules that you have to follow, when raising capital. And the big thing that a lot of these companies miss, whether it's a startup or whether it's a seasoned late-stage company, when they go out to try to raise money, first off, they don't want to follow the SEC security laws or state security laws. They think it doesn't apply to them for some reason. So they don't. If you're what they call affecting a transaction in securities, there's only two ways to legally raise money. You've got to do a full-blown registration with the SEC under S1, or you do one of the exemptions from registration, like crowdfunding, either Reg A or Reg D or 506C private placement. Those are the only two ways. And you would be surprised in this day and age, even with crowdfunding the way it is, people just don't want to follow the rules. They want to put a deck together or a business plan, and I probably get 20 of them a week from people that, here's my deck, can you raise money? It doesn't work that way, but you try to tell people and show them the right way to do it, and it just doesn't sink in. They try to do it themselves. So there are rules. They have to follow them.
And everybody wants to do it the easy way. They see all these companies that, I did crowdfunding and look, I have $500 million that I raised, and they think it's like an overnight success and an instant thing. I got a pitch deck, I got a business plan, now it's going to be magic and I'm going to raise a lot of money, but I really don't want to pay for legal fees, I don't want to pay for accountants, I don't want to pay for marketing. I'll wait till I have the money and then I'll go and talk to these people and see what they have to say. That's kind of a backwards way of approaching it, do you think?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I field those phone calls and emails weekly from people, and I get to the point where I don't even want to respond to them anymore because it's just like talking to the wind or something like that. You're right. I mean, you have to go out and hire a securities lawyer, not a divorce lawyer, not a business lawyer, but you need a securities lawyer to put your documents together and guide you through the process. It's not something, the internet is a gift and it's a curse. People think they can go on the internet. Yeah, they can go on the internet and they can bypass hiring a lawyer to put their documents together and just download some forms, fill them in, and start doing crowdfunding or raising capital. And then they wonder why they get the knock on the door from the SEC Enforcement Division, with the Justice Department, right behind them with a warrant for their arrest because they didn't follow the rules. And so you either pay a lawyer now to do it right, or you pay it a lot more later on because you screwed up. It's that simple. Right. But again, you're right.
And nobody wants to do it. It boggles my mind how everybody thinks that, like you said, look at all these forms on the internet and look, they say it's so easy and I can do this, that, and the other, and then it's going to be magic and everything's going to be fine and I'm going to save a lot of money. But you always get what you pay for, and if you don't use the right advisors and the right professionals ahead of time, it's exactly like you said. Now you're going to spend a lot more money to get out of the mess, and now you need a criminal attorney because you're in jail.
Yeah. Well,
and you
one
just
of the
trying
elements
to save money.
Yeah, one of the elements is raising capital using an unlicensed finder. And for some of your listeners out there who may not be aware of what I'm talking about, an unlicensed finder is somebody who's not licensed. The only firms that can work on a success fee or a commission to raising capital is a FINRA licensed investment bank, period. You can't hire a lawyer, an accountant, a CPA, your gardener, or anybody else and hand them your deck and your business plan and say, go out and raise me $1 million, and if you're successful, I'll pay you 10%. You can't do that. It's illegal.
No.
It's an unlicensed finder, and what can happen, and what does happen, is once an investor, figures he got or thinks he didn't get the best benefit of his bargain in the deal, he calls up the state security division or the SEC enforcement and starts telling about the deal. And the first thing the enforcement division asks is, what documents did you sign? Did you I didn't have it. There's no PPM. There was nothing except a deck, and they raised money from somebody that wasn't a FINRA licensed bank. So right there, you've got problems. And so what can happen is if you use an unlicensed finder to raise capital, even solicit money, forget about the fact that if he closes it, even an unlicensed finder soliciting money on your behalf is illegal. But if you pay an unlicensed finder a commission based on the success of raising money, both you, the issuer, and the finder can face civil and criminal penalties from state and federal regulators. And I don't know how many times I have to explain that to somebody. I still get, when I post on LinkedIn about, you can't use unlicensed finders, I'll still get 4 or 5 people that same day. They will send me their deck and say, we want you to raise money, but we're not going to pay unless you're successful. And I mean, it just boggles my mind. And when I do talk to some of these people, I say, look, you don't have to take my word for it. Contact the SEC. Find out, directly from, they don't bother. It's too cumbersome. They don't want to believe it because they say, well, I've done it in the past. And I said, well, just because you've done it before and broken the law and haven't gotten caught doesn't make it legal. Going into a bank and robbing a bank and getting away with it doesn't make robbery legal. So the fact that you raised money illegally doesn't make it right. It just means you haven't been caught yet. So that's one issue, of raising money under crowdfunding, and even if you don't use the crowdfunding tools, you still have to abide by state and federal security laws. People just don't want to follow the rules.
Right. No, everybody wants the easy way out regardless. And another thing that really boggles my mind, like you said, Mike, is people, they have no compulsion to do things illegally or do things not the right way and then think everything's going to be fine. It's like, do it the right way in the first place and save yourself a whole lot of stress and trouble and maybe criminal charges if you just did it the right way, and everything will work out better. But nobody thinks that way, it appears.
Case in point on that same is, again, with unlicensed finders, the issuer and the finder think they can put an agreement together and call it a marketing fee. Well, if you're working on a monthly retainer as a marketing fee, that's fine. But if your so-called marketing fee is tied to a percentage of the money you raise through your efforts, it's illegal. You could call it anything you want, but if it's a success fee paid to an unlicensed finder, it's illegal. I don't care what you call it. It's illegal. And everybody thinks they're so smart that, because I get these I call them smart asses on the phone all the time. And I say, just have that same conversation with the SEC that you're having with me and show how smart you are, and see how far it gets you. The courts are packed with people that think they're smart. The rules are there for a reason. You can try to tap dance around them. There is no gray area when it comes to raising capital and who you can pay a success fee to. And I get this story all the time. Well, what kind of guarantee do you give? If we're going to pay you a retainer, what kind of guarantee? There is no guarantee, you clown. I mean, who can guarantee? I mean, I've brought over my 30-year career, I've brought people to the table, and the company turns out to be a jerk. they won't take the money. They want to renegotiate terms of this and of that. So how can there be any kind of a guarantee? These people just are delusional. And again, I think the internet is part of the problem because people go and they only look for articles and things that they think bolster their position, and they don't really look at the facts. So it's a difficult time for a lot to people.
Yeah,
exactly. And everybody
wants to understand that. Go on, Vicki.
No, I just was going to make one little comment that everybody thinks that they're an expert, but they're really not. And you have to be real careful about who you listen to. Have a little brain power.
Well, yeah, and again, that's why they have security lawyers. That's why they have CPAs to do audits. That's why they have dentists to work on your teeth. That's why they have neurosurgeons to do surgery on your brain. You don't do those things yourself. I don't care. I had a doctor tell me one time, don't confuse your 30-minute internet search as a substitute for my 10 years of medical school and 20 years of medical practice. Don't confuse your little internet search with my experience. And that's true for anything, raising capital, taking your company public, crowdfunding, whatever. There are professionals that will keep you out of trouble in most cases. And, you need to reach out to the people and get some guidance well before you take everything on. You can't just rely on your internet search.
True enough.
Well, Mike, there's so much money in crowdfunding. I can see why people would want to do this, let's say unlicensed. But let's say, for example, I wanted to create a consulting company, Ron Costa Associates, that's going to be raising money for crowdfunding projects per se, right? Now, based on what you said before, I have to be a licensed FINRA entity. Otherwise, I cannot do it legally, right? That's bottom line, no questions asked.
No. You can, as long as you're not doing it for a success fee. In other words, as long as you're not reaching out to investors and raising, let's say, $1 million, and if you're successful, the company pays you a fee. That's illegal. But if you're a consultant, an advisor, and you're helping people raise money and you're getting paid a monthly marketing fee to do podcasts, press releases, YouTube videos, everything, to attract investors to go to a funding portal to look at a deal, that's legal. You can charge a fee to do that. You just can't charge a success fee based upon your efforts in raising money. That's the problem right there.
All right. So again, if I'm an individual now and I want to get into this business in terms of collecting commissions, then would I just hook up with a broker dealer, and then that would be a way to do it legally then?
No. You as an individual have to have a license, either a Series 7, a 63. There's probably a dozen different security licenses you have to have. You have to pass an exam, state, federal exams, and then you need to go to a broker dealer and have what they call hang your license with a broker dealer. And so then when, let's say you are putting a deal together and there's a 10% commission involved, the broker dealer collects that and then pays you a percentage because you have your license hung with that broker dealer. That's the process.
All right, so it's similar to a real estate license then in that situation.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I mean, here in California, you can sell, if you're not a real estate agent with a license or a real estate broker and you're just doing real estate transactions, you can do about, I think, 10 a year without having a license. But if you're really in the real estate business, you have to have a real estate license or a broker's license. And the same thing with raising capital if you're going to do it on a commission. If you're like, I charge a retainer. My clients have raised upwards to $200 million following my advice over my career. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot of money to people who raise billions, but I'm not really in the capital raising business. I'm in to structuring, making sure that's compliant with SEC rules and regulations. I do the marketing. I help the clients upload their documents to an SEC-approved funding platform. We make arrangements for them to appear on radio, TV, podcasts. We do the press releases, the emails, the marketing, all with the idea of exposing their offering to the general public. We follow the rules. The rules say you can do general solicitation and advertising now and direct them to a platform where they can view the offering. And then if they want to invest, they hit the invest button, and a licensed broker picks up the call and qualifies them and closes the financing. That's what we do. And that's the legal way of doing it. Unfortunately, when I try to explain that process to potential clients, they don't want to follow the rules. I'll pay you 10%. You go out and I'm not interested, buddy. Not interested at all. Doesn't work that way. And I tell them, look, you don't have to take my word for it. You can go to the SEC, talk to them, go to their website. Well, I hear this comment all the time. Well, my attorney said, and I said, okay, when you get in trouble with the state and federal regulators, is that attorney going to be there and defend you with no additional charge? No, I don't think so, because he knows better. Even lawyers, even attorneys cannot collect a success fee for raising capital. They charge their retainer. They can put your private placement together, your Reg A's. They can put all the SEC paperwork, and they can make some introductions to hedge funds or private investors. They can't collect a commission if you close financing. That's why none of them do it. I get all their overflow. I get the comment from people, well, I don't have any money to pay you, Brett, because I paid my lawyers to put all my documents together. I paid my accountants to do the audits. I paid the funding platform. I paid everybody. And I said, well, you paid all the wrong people. That's fine for all that. But now you got to have a marketing budget, or you just wasted all that money. So, they just don't budget. It comes down to budgeting like anything else.
Yeah.
Mike,
let me ask you a question.
Go ahead, Vicki.
Why is it so illegal to collect a commission on what your future endeavor might be? So what makes that illegal compared to having a monthly retainer?
Well, it's because the monthly retainer is not tied to success of the deal. That's the big sticking point right there. Where these companies get into problems and these unlicensed finders get into problems is the compensation. And there are several points that the SEC and the regulators look at. One of them is this person who does not have a license soliciting and going after to raise money, is he doing it on a commission success fee? Is it transaction-based compensation? If the answer is yes, it's illegal, because that person has to be a licensed broker dealer. If you're working on a retainer, you're getting paid, X number of dollars a month to do the marketing, to make introductions, but you're not getting a piece of the action for raising the money. That's the big difference right there. And that's what the SEC looks at to find out whether you're acting as an unlicensed broker dealer. Is your compensation transaction based? Yeah, it comes down to the licensing.
Licensing to make sure that you are educated enough to know what you're doing, and you're not raising money I'll raise this money because I'm going to line my pockets, as opposed to I'm raising this money because I'm helping your business to grow and succeed.
Yeah, there are 4 points that the SEC looks at. They look at more, but basically 4. Number one is, again, is it transaction-based compensation? In other words, is it a commission based on successfully finding an investor? Number 2, is this finder making recommendations, selling your securities to somebody? Number 3, does this unlicensed finder, have a history of selling securities to raise money on a commission when he doesn't have a license? And number 4, does this finder take an active role in negotiating with the investors, with the company, and back and forth? Those are 4 issues that the SEC looks at. You don't have to hit all 4 of them. If you hit 1 or 2, then you've got a problem with the SEC. And it all comes down to really the transaction-based commissions that are success fees, based on raising money. So you just can't do it. That's why, again, the Crowdfunding Act was passed so that companies could follow crowdfunding rules, follow the Reg A process, put their documents together, file them with the SEC, upload their documents to an SEC-approved funding platform. Now start marketing it. We're going to allow you to reach out to the public with general solicitation and advertising. Before the Jobs Act was passed, you couldn't do that. You could not do advertising, marketing, promotion. You couldn't do seminars. You couldn't get on podcasts or radio shows or TV and saying, we've got an offering where we're raising $1 million, and go to this site and look at our documents or call us on the phone. You couldn't do that. You had to deal with what the SEC called pre-existing business relationships, which means it's not somebody you play golf with once in a while. It's somebody that, have you done business with this person for 3, 4, 5, 6 years or longer? So there's a whole history that gets involved. Well, that made it difficult for companies, small businesses, to raise money because a lot of small businesses don't have access to investors outside of their friends and family. So they passed the Jobs Act to fill that void.
Right. Okay, well, before we close this out, my couple of questions. Everything that we spoke about so far, does this also apply to the security token offerings and tokenization on the blockchain and investments such as that? Because I think the SEC considers them all investments. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, yes. The short answer is yes. If you're doing a token, if you're doing a cryptocurrency of some kind, it's considered a security, and it's either got to be a registration or an exemption from registration. And I hear this all the time from people. I get contacted. Well, no, ours is not a security. Wait a minute. Yes, it is. There's only, I don't care if you're doing crypto or if you're doing common stock. If you're selling a security, it's got to be a registration with the SEC or it's got to be an exemption from SEC. There's no gray area in between. And you can see how many of these crypto wallets or whatever you want to call it have gotten closed down by the SEC because they just didn't take the steps to be registered or an exemption from registration to make their offer. They just think they can go out helter-skelter and offer a token, a coin, or whatever, but you can't do that. It's got to be, like I said, either registration or exemption. And even the safe agreements that are out there, I think we talked about at the top of the show, the safe agreements, which are, it's a definition. It's a simple agreement for future equity, which means the investor is putting money into a deal, whether it's crypto or crowdfunding or whatever. An investor is putting money into a deal, but he's not getting anything, equity or anything right now. He's getting something at a future date under certain terms and conditions. And maybe we could do this at another show. We can talk about safe agreements, which are not really safe. They are considered to be a security. There's a lot of holes in it for the investment standpoint, because the only way the investor gets anything out of it, if he puts money in a safe, is if there's certain trigger points that happen. In other words, in the safe agreement, the trigger point is there any future funding? If so, all right, then maybe I can convert into equity in the future. But there's a whole list of requirements again. And I tell people all the time, look, in fact, I'm trying to clean up a mess now for a client that didn't take my advice and decided to download safe agreements from the internet because he heard somebody talk about them at a seminar, and he just took the forms, filled them out, and now he's got problems. There are certain things you can do with safe agreements, but again, they're not safe, they're not simple, even though that's the title.
It's funny how safe agreements aren't safe. The Federal Reserve, it's not Federal Reserve, and all these grape nuts, no nuts, no grapes in the cereal. So you never know. You're being lied to all the time.
Well, the reason how the safe agreements happen, they occurred in Silicon Valley, where all the tech guys are, and the VC firms wanted to get involved with a tech company early on because they didn't want to miss out on something, but they didn't have the time to do proper due diligence and look at the deal, do evaluation. It was too early to do evaluation, but they wanted to get something. They wanted to get a piece of this company before it took off, if it took off. So they came up with these safe agreements to allow them to put a few bucks in, maybe $100,000, under this agreement for something that might happen in the future if a bigger player came in. Well, just because Silicon Valley and the VC firms came up with that, every Tom, Dick, and Harry on a startup thought they could use a safe agreement. Without hiring a securities lawyer, without complying with state and federal security laws. And it's a minefield. I'm not saying you can't use them. I'm just saying you should not use them without proper advice on how to put them together correctly for your benefit as well as for the investor's benefit, because both parties can get screwed.
No, that's not a good thing.
Right. Okay, well, let me just really summarize this really quickly for people who want to get into this business as a money raiser for projects. What you're saying, Mike, is that you pretty much have to get your securities license, get hooked up with a broker-dealer, right? And then I guess at that point, once you're hooked up with the broker-dealer, your terms of employment can be negotiated with that broker-dealer at that point for whatever percentage you get, right? And very similar to real estate. And then once you've got that done, you can raise money legally for projects in just about every area of crowdfunding, as long as the broker-dealer is a part of that whole process. Is that a good summary?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. If you want to go through that licensing process, the exams are really tough, and the requirements of getting a broker dealer to take you on and list and have your license there and everything like that. But yeah, that's the process if you want to do it that way.
Excellent. All right. Well, that sounds pretty good, because I know a lot of people want to get into this business. Tons of money in crowdfunding, and as you said earlier, I guess the temptation is certainly there to go in it on a shoestring and say, hey, I can raise money and that's it, and hopefully the SEC doesn't catch up to me. I end up in jail, and that's not a really good way to look at things.
Yeah. I mean, you can't do crowdfunding unless you got a budget of about 10% of the amount you're trying to raise to pay for videos, to pay for press releases, and everything to get awareness about your offering. Because again, investors are not sitting out there with their checkbook in hand waiting to write you a check for your deal if they've never heard of it. I mean, they're not going to call you up. But if they see you interviewed on a podcast or a TV show, radio show, if they read about your press releases, if they hear about you and your deal, then they're going to go to the website, the platform that you're on, or they're going to call you. But without reaching out to the general public and without reaching out to institutional investors and telling them about your deal, I mean, you're dead in the water. There's just no way you're going to raise money beyond, again, your friends and family in a small circle. And that's typically not enough to get your project off the ground. And
then a lot of times you lose friends and family that way.
Exactly.
It gets real awkward. It gets real awkward over holiday dinners, when you've lost their money and
but,
you got to look them in the eye
instead of turkey.
So
how does somebody get a hold of you if they want more information or want to speak to you in more detail about this?
They can call me at 951-236-8473. They can email me at Mike Brette, BRETTE at Gmail, or they can go to LinkedIn and look up my name, Michael Brette on LinkedIn. It's got all my information, contact information. It's got all my services, my videos, everything I do, how I do it, and the ins and outs. And I post on LinkedIn all the time articles about, how to raise money, how to go public, Reg A. All the information is there. Sometimes I wonder why I do it, because nobody ever reads them, I don't think. Because I get calls and emails from people, and I say, didn't you see my post on LinkedIn? No, yeah, I contacted you through LinkedIn, but I didn't read about it. I mean, but anyhow, I do a lot. I'm really.
You know what we're going to do, Mike? We're going to play this podcast in SEC prison to all the prisoners there, and we're going to see you, and you're going to become the Better Call Saul of crowdfunding.
Yeah, there you go. maybe they'll listen to it. I don't know. Yeah, sometimes I think I'm talking to the wind or something like that, talking to deaf ears, because it doesn't resonate sometimes. But sometimes you got to pound away at the same story.
Yeah, like I said, I'm loving the topic of this podcast, because everybody talks about how rich they're going to get making crowdfunding calls and raising money, and it's the right way and there's one way to do it. And I thought this was a great topic, and you really nailed it with the information today, Mike. Vicki, what do you think about the podcast today?
Well, after this discussion, Ron, I think we can see that there are many, many people out there who are being taken advantage of by scammers and pretend experts who take advantage of a business owner simply because that business owner didn't do adequate research or understand the process of crowdfunding. There's no quick fix. There's no easy way to raise money for a business, a startup, or an existing business. So, don't get taken advantage of. You need to contact Mike. You need to talk to him. Let him help you through the process. Let him do everything the correct way. Operate your business with integrity, and there you go. You're on the road to success because you did it right in the first place. That's what Mike will help you with. And that's my 2 cents.
Yeah. All right.
Good summation. Well, thanks.
Yeah, and thank you, Mike, for being a guest on the show again. Like I said, we always love when you're on the show. It's always a great topic, always great discussion. So, and I'm sure we'll have you on again soon, right? I hope.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks, Ron. Okay,
excellent.
Thank you.
Okay, well, once again, thanks again, Mike. Thanks again, Vicki, for co-hosting. And folks, you're listening to the Mappable USA podcast at mappableiusa.com. If you go to that website, you scroll down to see all our syndication sources. Just pick the one you like best, subscribe, and you'll never miss another one of our episodes. If you want to be a guest on the show like Mike was today, there's a guest tab. Fill that out, and we'll see what we can do about getting you on the show. And if you like what you heard today, send us an email at info@mappableiusa.com, or just leave a comment on whatever page you're listening to this on right now. So thanks for listening. Thanks for your support. We'll be at you next time with another Mappable USA podcast. Have a great week, everyone.